All right, let's get right into it. When I say the name Rasputin, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably some mad monk with crazy eyes and magical powers, right? The shadowy guy pulling the strings behind the last Tsar of Russia? Or maybe just that he was basically impossible to kill. Yeah, for more than 100 years, the story of Grigori Rasputin has been this incredible mix of real history and some seriously wild fiction. I mean, think about it. To the Russian imperial family, he was practically a saint, a man sent from God, maybe the only hope for their sixth son. But to his enemies, and believe me, he had a lot of enemies, he was this evil, corrupting force, a debauched heretic who was rotting the entire Russian Empire right from its core. So, what's the real story? Who was the actual man behind the myth? Was he a genuine mystic with some unexplainable feeling ability? Or was he a brilliant con man whose influence directly led to the downfall of a 300-year-old dynasty? That's what we're going to try and figure out. Let's peel back the layers of the legend and see if we can find the real Rasputin. To really get a handle on this guy, we have to go way, way back to the beginning. And we're starting in a place that's about as far as you can get from the glittering palaces of St. Petersburg. Welcome to Pokrovskoye, Siberia. This is where Grigori Rasputin was born back in 1869. And he was a peasant, nothing more, just like pretty much everyone else in this part of the world. He never had a formal education. In fact, he couldn't read or write until he was an adult. His early life is a bit of a mystery, a black hole, as one historian calls it. But the little we do know suggests he was pretty rowdy, not exactly the pious, saintly kid you might have imagined. Now, this is where the story gets kind of wild. Look at this timeline. He's 28, already married with kids, when he suddenly has this big religious experience and just leaves. He becomes a Stranic, a holy wanderer, and in less than a decade, this illiterate peasant from the absolute middle of nowhere somehow talks his way into the fanciest social circles in the capital and gets a personal introduction to the Tsar and Tsarina of all of Russia. It's just an absolutely insane, meteoric rise. But how? How did he go from being this strange curiosity for bored nobles to a figure who was considered absolutely essential at the palace? Well, the answer lies with the Tsar's only son, Alexei, and a terrifying secret the royal family was desperate to hide. The heir to the entire Russian Empire had hemophilia. It's this terrible genetic disease where your blood doesn't clot. For young Alexei, it meant that any little bump or scrape could trigger a crisis of agonizing internal bleeding that doctors just couldn't stop. Imagine living with that. The family was in a constant state of terror for their son's life. And this is Rasputin's big moment. In 1912, Alexei is on his deathbed after a nasty hemorrhage. The family's losing all hope. In total desperation, that Tsarina tells her friend to send a telegram to Rasputin, who's all the way back in Siberia. And this is his reply. The sheer confidence of it is stunning. He doesn't just say, "I'll pray for him." He gives a command. And the craziest part, the boy started to get better. The bleeding stopped. I mean, even the royal doctor, Dr. Fedorov, basically threw his hands up and admitted, "We have no idea how this happened." From a medical standpoint, it made no sense. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the Tsarina Alexandra. For a desperate mother watching her son suffer, this wasn't a coincidence. It was a miracle from God. And from that moment on, she was convinced that Rasputin, and only Rasputin, could keep her son alive. So this unshakable belief gave Rasputin a level of access and influence that was just unheard of. Inside the palace, he was a trusted, beloved friend. But outside those walls, his influence started to breed suspicion, scandal, and a deep-seated paranoia that eventually infected the whole country. And check this out, because this perfectly shows the huge contradiction of Rasputin. We have this popular image of some sinister, creepy manipulator, but then you see this, a telegram he sent to one of the Tsar's young daughters. It's so sweet and innocent. The royal children adored him. They called him our friend. And every credible account says his relationship with them was gentle and completely harmless. But that tender, private side we just saw, nobody on the outside saw that. What they saw was a storm of vicious scandals. The rumors were relentless and they were ugly. That he was sleeping with the Tsarina, that he'd corrupted her daughters, that he held these drunken orgies. The church accused him of heresy. The government investigated him for taking bribes. It got so bad that there were disgusting, pornographic cartoons of him with the Empress being passed around everywhere. Now, all of this is happening while Russia is getting absolutely hammered in World War I. The country is falling apart, and that paranoia just explodes. Powerful people in the government, like this politician, Vladimir Purishkevich, started seeing Rasputin as the puppet master. They believed he was controlling the German-born Tsarina, and that together they were the evil genius intentionally destroying Russia from the inside. He became the ultimate scapegoat for every single thing that was going wrong. With that level of hatred and fear swirling around, you can probably guess where this is all headed. By December 1916, a group of powerful nobles decided that the only way to save Russia was to kill Rasputin. And the story of how they did it, well, that's what would cement his legend forever. The stage was set right here, in the basement of this incredible palace owned by Prince Felix Yusupov, who was one of the richest men in the entire country. Rasputin was lured here late one night. He was told he was coming to meet the prince's famously beautiful wife. He had no idea he was walking straight into a trap. Okay, so this is the story that everybody knows, the one told by his killer, Prince Yusupov, and it sounds like something out of a horror movie. First, they feed him cakes and wine packed with enough cyanide to kill a horse, but nothing happens. So Yusupov shoots him point blank in the chest. But then, Rasputin supposedly leaks back to life, attacks his assassins, and chases them out into the snow before they finally shoot him again. It's this version that made him seem not quite human. But then there's the science. The official autopsy tells a much less dramatic and much more believable story. Let's compare. The legend says he survived a massive dose of poison. The forensic evidence? No poison was found in his stomach. At all. The legend says he jumped up after being shot once. The autopsy shows he died from 3 separate gunshot wounds. And the big finale, was he still alive when they threw him in the river? Nope, no water was found in his lungs, which means he was already dead. The crazy story was almost certainly made up by Yusupov to make his murder seem like the heroic slaying of an unholy monster. So this is it. This is the bridge where the killers drove his body, found a hole in the ice, and pushed him into the freezing river below. His body was found 2 days later, frozen solid. The mad monk was finally, truly dead. But here's the ultimate irony. His assassins thought killing him would save the monarchy. In reality, it probably did the exact opposite. His murder just reinforced this public image of a totally corrupt and incompetent government. And just a few weeks later, the Russian Revolution erupted, and the Romanov dynasty, which had ruled for 300 years, was completely wiped out. And that leaves us with the big, final question, doesn't it? Was Rasputin really this powerful, evil force who single-handedly brought down an entire empire? Or was the empire already a sinking ship, and he was just the strangest, most fascinating symptom of a system that was already dying? A bizarre figure who just happened to be on stage for the final act of a world that was about to vanish forever. That's the mystery he leaves behind.